Hey everybody, my name is Stacey. I am in Jacksonville, Florida. That's the northern part of Jacksonville, not too far away from the Georgia border. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I was in New Orleans for about 10 years before I came to Jacksonville 2 years ago. So a little bit of me is Yankee, a little bit of me is Southern Fried, and a little bit of me is Cajun. So if what I'm saying doesn't make any sense, that's probably why. But anyway, so what I am is a cottage food vendor that specializes in cakes. The cakes I really enjoy doing are cakes that don't look like cake, cakes that look like guitars, cakes that look like purses, cakes that look like a stack of CDs. And what really opened the door for me to create the craft and the niche that I live in is Icing Images. I've had two printers from Icing Images already. Both of them have been the Canons. They're called the Platinum printer, which is the what you would consider a standard desktop printer that has the rear feed tray and the ink tanks inside that you can refill. The thing I like about my printer is if I want red, I get red. If I want black, I get black. If I want green, I get green. If I want some color in between, I get that color that's in between as well. And having the ability to fine tune my product to look exactly like what I want it to is the thing that I love the most about Icing Images printers. Now, the thing that makes my job fun is that I am a digital artist. I'm not so good with physical media. Like if you ask me to draw a figure, it's going to look like a stick figure. But you sit me down in front of a computer, let me smack the keyboard a few times, and you get an image that comes out of it. So what we're going to do tonight is take a very basic cake like this. There's nothing special about this cake. The outside is done in buttercream. I did some swirls on the top, added a couple of dragées, a little bit of gold luster dust gilding around the edges. And what we're going to do is apply an image to it. So give me just a second here to switch the camera, and you can stop looking at me and start looking at something a bit more interesting. So
that's so cute. Look at that. Perfect.
I swear I did not pay Deb to tell me that I'm cute tonight. All right, so what do I have here? What I have here is mise en place. Mise en place is a culinary term that means get your stuff together. I'm keeping it G-rated for this stream, but you get your stuff together. Because when you're in the heat of the moment and you want to start producing your work and start building something, if you don't have everything ready, you're going to get distracted. And if you're like me and you get distracted and you walk out into another room to go get that piece that you're missing, all of a sudden you're off track. So let me go through what we have on our mise en place. First thing you want to start with is a fully coated and refrigerated cake. Let me say that again. Fully coated and refrigerated cake. Why does it need to be fully coated? Well, you can't put an image on raw cake. You can, but it's going to look funny. Why does it need to be fully chilled? It needs to be fully chilled so the cake doesn't slump, slide, shift, do any of those nasty things that annoy us whenever a cake does it. And also, watch this. When you touch it, you don't get prints and you don't get anything on your hands. Like my hand is still very dry. Normally when I work with a cake, I wear vinyl gloves. That's for food safety purposes, but also because I tend to have extraordinarily warm hands, which means I tend to lift icing off of cakes. So tonight, since this is a dummy cake for this demonstration only, I'm going to skip the gloves. But let's go down here to the tray and take a look at what we got. So you need your fully chilled cake. You need your printed icing image. And what I like to do is I take a supply bag that my icing prints come in from Deb, and I write finished on it, and I save this one, and I put all my finished prints in it, because in Florida, where it's very humid, I have to keep them safe so they don't get humid. So I have a fully printed and dried, ready to go image in there. In my case, I also use a silhouette cameo from Icing Images to do print and cut. So my image is already cut out, ready to go as well. So let's look at the tray. We have the icing print. We have piping gel. I prefer to use piping gel. I've experimented with a few other options, but piping gel works well for me. I have a little bottle of water because what I do is I thin the piping gel with the water, and that allows me to get a more uniform coverage and smoother finish on what I'm working on. I have a tray and I have a little spoon. The little spoon is so I can scoop the piping gel out, put it in my tray. That way, whenever I'm moving the brush back and forth, I don't accidentally contaminate my tub of piping gel. I did that one time. It was pretty nasty. I also have pastry brushes, and this is what I use to paint the back of my image with the thinned out piping gel. I have a craft knife. This is a pen blade style where you can press the back end, the knife comes out, you push the trigger, and it retracts. That way it doesn't go in your hand. I have a super fine needle. Now, I prefer to use acupuncture needles because they are super, super fine. And if you do get a bubble in your image, you can just give it a little poke, squeeze the air out of it, and it's much nicer looking. If you don't have these, you could use a super fine lancet needle from a diabetic kit, or you could use a super fine pin from a sewing kit as well. I have Everclear. I prefer to use Everclear because it's extraordinarily cheap and extraordinarily potent. Now, I don't mean potent for drinking. I mean potent that it's a high alcohol content, which means it evaporates very, very quickly. And when it evaporates quickly, that allows the work to do what it needs to do. Like I said before, I have vinyl gloves that I use whenever I'm doing a food product, a ruler or straight edge, because if I need to get the image off the base or the drum of the cake, I use that to line it up. I also have a soft brush. Sometimes whenever I do print and cut, it will drag just a little bit of the icing off from the sheet, and I just use this to easily brush it away. I have a poking tool. In this case, it's a Dresden or a veining or a boating tool, and I use this sometimes. I just need to get underneath the image and pick it up ever so slightly if the image has a lot of fine detail on it. I'll show you what I mean about that in a second. And then also a fine, flexible palette knife, because whenever I'm peeling the image up, I use this to get under the image and help pop it. So whenever I go to peel it, I don't accidentally crack it or turn it. Another thing that you need to have on hand is a non-stick silicone mat. What we use this for is I put the image down on it, and that allows me to easily paint the back of it without it moving around. Let me move my stuff here just a second. I have a dry and a wet bar mop or kitchen towel. Dry for drying, wet for wetting. Again, I tend to have warm hands, so I use this to get any residue off my hands and keep my hands from being sticky. So I'll move those up here. Last but not least, you need something that I almost put too far away to reach. You need a fully assembled, ready to go cake box. Whatever box you're going to stick your cake in whenever you're done, you want this box. Putting your cake in the box immediately after the image has been attached lets you put it back in the refrigerator and it not attract moisture, because sugar is hygroscopic, which means it loves to soak up moisture in the air. So if you have issues with wrinkling or cracking or slumping on your image, a lot of times that can be caused by the moisture in your refrigerator getting onto your cake and getting onto your image. So as soon as I finish my cake, I put it in a box, put it in the fridge, and it's done. All right, so let's get rolling here. I'm going to take my tray, take my piping gel.
I have one question for you while you're doing that. Ken Norton wants to ask, are the printed images waterproof after they dry, or will they run if they get wet?
They can run after they get wet, or if they get wet once they have been done. So the secret to an icing image printer, and this isn't unique to just the ones that Icing Images sells. It's all of them. So I'm going to wash my hands a little bit here because I got some gel on them. But the difference between a regular printer on your desk and an Icing image printer is that the cartridges are filled with food-safe dyes instead of the chemical-based dyes that are in a regular printer. So treat an Icing print the same way you would a paper print. If it's going to get wet when it comes out of your printer, it's going to get wet when it comes out of your Icing printer as well. So next I'm going to take some water, and I'm just going to put a few drops in there. The ratio I tend to go with is about 4:1, 4 parts gel to 1 part water. And then I just mix it up. Now, this is not one of my best brushes. In fact, this is a pretty crummy brush. That's why I use it for this task. But the reason I'm thinning it down is for a few reasons. First of all, it makes the gel thinner. Well, duh. That's why it's called thinning it down. But the reason why we thin it down is it allows the gel to spread more evenly, and it creates almost like a self-settling. So you notice here, let me pick this up so you can see a little bit better. If I take some of this gel and I drag it up the side, you can see over here in the corner that it starts to settle itself back down. The reason you want that to happen is it allows you to get an even layer on the back of your image. So that's all mixed up, good to go. So now I'm going to take my image and we'll see if Deb can realize what I snuck in here without letting her know.
What did you sneak in?
What did I sneak in? What did I sneak in? Well, I will tell you later, but I won't tell you now. So what we have here is an image that is printed out of an Icing Images printer. In fact, it's the one that was behind me whenever the other camera was up. And this is a piece of artwork that I designed just for this class. In setting things up for this, I was wanting to think warm thoughts because it was freezing outside. I know, it's Florida. It's still freezing. So what I did was I took this image, set it up in Silhouette Studio, ran it through the Cameo to cut it. So now I have a very fine cut going the whole way around it. That saves me from having to sit here for an hour and manually trace this out. So what I'm going to do to get it off the page without ripping it, tearing it, curling it, bending it, any of that, is I'm going to pick a spot. And I'm going to pick this spot because I like it. It's close to me. And I'm going to take my knife, go right up to the edge where that cut is, and just draw a line straight out to here. It's a little hard to see on the camera because, see, I didn't do anything too crazy. I just cut a thin line. Why did I do that? That's going to let me weed or peel the excess away from the image. That way it cuts easily. I'm also going to set a weed line over here. There. Now what I can do is just pick this corner up and just start peeling it away. And you notice that if I let that go, it settles, but it also tends to curl a little bit. So if you peel from the excess, you can very easily pull away all the excess icing sheet without curling the image that you're actually going to use. I'm just being a little patient here, working around the corners, kind of up around. Just like that. And you can take this, snack on it, throw it away, whatever you like. Now I'm going to take my palette knife, pick up the corner of the image, work my palette knife under it, just like this. And this is one of the reasons why I use these mats. They've got ever so slight amount of give. So I'm actually pressing down into the knife pretty hard to keep it flush with the surface. And there we go. Perfectly detached, not torn, or anything else like that. Here's a tip. Don't throw away these acetate backer sheets. Save them. You can use them for all sorts of projects. Before I got these little trays, I used one of these sheets and I just dropped my piping gel onto it like that. All right. Move that over here. Pick up my image, place it down. Now I'm going to take my gel and just start slapping it in there. I'm not being too careful because I'm in the middle part of the image. I'm not close to the edges. So I'm just going to go back and forth, back and forth.
So while you're doing that, we have another question for you.
Go for it.
This is from Elizabeth. Can you freeze the cake with an image?
100% yes. I have done it. It has saved my tail because a couple years ago I was in New Orleans and our average temperature for every day that week was about 100 degrees. I'm not joking. And I had to go an hour and a half away to deliver a cake. So I put the cake in my freezer in the box. Again, in the box, even more important when you're in the freezer because freezers are an even higher humidity environment compared to a refrigerator. And I froze the cake for about an hour and drove it there. And if you happen to look at the photos I have posted on Facebook or whatnot, it was the Jurassic Park cake that had icing images on it. And that the picture that I had there was the picture that the client sent me. And that was like 3 hours later, I think, after I made that drive in 100-degree weather. All right, so what have I done here? I have applied a very thin layer of the piping gel water mixture the whole way across it. Now, if you look at how the light catches it, it almost looks dry, but it almost looks wet, and that's what you want. You want it to be ever so slightly tacky, and that's because it's doing two things. One, the gel is acting as a glue. Two, the water is going to act as a dissolving agent against the sugar in your buttercream. And when you have a slight melt from the sugar, don't worry, it's not going to leave a mark or cause any damage. But when you have that very light melting from the water combined with the stickiness of the gel, it's perfect. So for a wrap style image like this, and this is going to get real interesting because I have to do this through the camera because I can't see it. Because if I'm looking at it, y'all can't see it. Yeah, there we go. Now also notice when I pick up the image, I'm very careful to not get my thumbs and fingers all over the sticky part of the image. So now what I do, doing this with the camera, give me a little grace. I place it against the edge of the drum and the edge of the cake, pick it up, and now look at what I'm doing. I'm making it almost a wave shape where the edges are out and the center is coming in to meet the cake, just like that. Now, why did I do that? For all all right, so why did I do that? Bubbles tend to form in pockets where the image is applied with a pocket of air underneath it. Now, those pockets of air can come from really two locations. One, it can come from air in the buttercream. So in the case of like American buttercream, you want to make sure it's fully whipped, fully smooth. In the case of whipped cream, that is a very problematic thing. I've never had good luck with whipped cream and applying an image to it. I know others have. I would love to find out how they do it because it doesn't work for me. But Swiss meringue buttercream, French meringue buttercream, ermine, Russian buttercream, all of those tend to work very, very well for this if you make sure it's perfectly smooth. Now, for this particular cake, I did American buttercream. So how did I get that smooth finish on it? I took my cake, I smoothed it, and then I went back over the second time with a scraper. In fact, let me go ahead and pull that scraper out to show you what it looks like. Or not, because it's in the dish rack. But it's just a straight metal edge, and I used my blowtorch that I use for working with isomalt, and I torch the edge of it for a couple seconds. That way the edge gets really, really hot. It's not so hot that it burns when you touch it, but it's hot enough that whenever you do touch it, you can tell it's hot. And I scrape the sides of the cake, and that gives me perfectly smooth sides. So I take my image, and now I'm just going to work it up over the sides. And I can tell right now that it's not perfectly level because of the angle I'm working at. But the lesson here is if I can make it work in less than ideal situations, y'all can make it work when you're in your home kitchens or your studios, and you can actually look at what you're doing instead of looking at it from behind. If you could see the other camera, it's pretty funny. No, you can't put that other camera up, Deb and Lori. So now what I'm doing is I'm just coming back along here, and I'm just using the pad of my finger to press from the center out to the edge. Because if you look right here, the shadow shows you that the edges are curling away from the cake ever so slightly. And that's a great place for an air bubble to get trapped. So I'm just taking my finger up along the side, boop, push it into place, boop, push it into place, boop, push it into place. And just like that. Oh, awesome. I have an air bubble, so I can show you what to do with it now. I was hoping for that.
Say awesome.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said most people don't say awesome. I have an air bubble.
Well, that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping for a boo-boo. That way I can show you all how I fix it.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to take my acupuncture needle, and what I'm going to do is put it down so I don't poke myself. And I'm going to take this pencil to show you what I'm going to do. I am going to look at my bubble. My bubble is right here. I'm going to look at the area around my bubble, and I'm going to address it now, because if you put this in the chiller and it starts to get colder, as it gets colder again, because it's been out of the fridge now for about 30 minutes or so, so it's getting a little warm. Like if I try pushing up into the buttercream now, you can see that it is leaving a dent right there. So it is getting a little soft. But I'm going to address it now because if I put it back in the cooler, the bubble's going to shrink because air shrinks in colder temperatures, and the bubble might go away. Great, job's done. Nope. When the cake gets warm again, whenever it's being prepared for service, then that bubble's going to come back, and you're not going to be there to fix it because you've already delivered the cake or the cake's already been picked up. So I'm going to look at where that bubble is, and I'm going to look at the area around it. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a dark spot. What? I'm looking for a dark spot, or I'm looking for a spot where a shadow is meeting something else. Now, in this particular image, there's no shadows, but what I do have is a beautiful dark spot right here. And what I'm going to do is take the needle very finely, just poke a tiny little hole. Tiny, tiny, tiny little hole. And if you look at where I put the hole, focus.
Yeah, just hold on to it. There you go.
Yep. Maybe not. But what you would see, and here's a trick. I'm going to give you all this image at the end of the live so you can look at it yourself. But what I did is I went for that little spot right there where the dark shades are coming together, because now when I pull the needle out, you're not going to see it. So I took the needle out immediately, wet cloth, dry cloth, put it back in the tube because you will only ever step on this once with your foot and you will never do it again. So now I'm going to take my air and start pushing it towards that itty bitty hole I just poked. And you will see that the bubble just disappears. Very similar to the technique you would use for chasing an air bubble out of modeling chocolate or fondant or some other kind of rolled coating for a cake. And there you go. It's just like that.
That's great. Now we have a couple questions for you before
Go
we
for it.
go any further. I just kind of hold until there's a breaking point. Catherine Donner wants to know, when you were applying the image, could you also use a fondant smoother tool as well?
You can, but here's the caveats for that. On an image like this that has a lot of contour, and contour means it's that edge, like this has lots of ins and outs and dupes and dots and whatnot, just like this rose or this parrot. Something like that, if you're taking the scraper across it, I'm sorry, the smoother, if you take the smoother across it, you could catch one of these if it's not perfectly in and tear it. So what I prefer to do is, again, I would normally be wearing a vinyl glove, is I will take the back of my knuckle right here or the back of this knuckle, depending on whether I need a short area or a large area, and I will take my finger and just run it across and use my finger as a scraper. And I hold my hand like this for a couple of reasons. It puts a little bit of tension on the skin so that gives almost a flat edge-ish, but also it balls up the meat in your finger, and that provides a smooth and gentle surface that you can go over, because no matter how much you smooth the cake, it's going to be a little bumpy in some places or have a ripple or something like that. And a scraper or a smoother, while it works very well on a clay-like material like fondant, on something like this that's more fragile because of its thinness, it could cause it to tear. But that was a great question. Thank you.
Okay, we got another one for you. Lisa Thomas wants to say, add a thin layer of fondant behind the image before add it to the cake so the image is protected by the fondant. I guess it's more of a comment.
Yes. So that is a technique I use when I make cupcake toppers. A trick that I like is I will take my pasta roller and I'll roll out a thin sheet of pasta, cut out 1.5-inch medallions, and put them on my rack, stick it in the dehydrator for about 3 hours or so at 115 degrees, get them super, super dry. Then I do a print and cut again for like a 1.4-inch diameter circle with my image in it, pop them out, put a little piping gel on the back of it, slap it on the top of it, and it's perfect. So that's what I use for a cupcake topper. In this exact scenario that I think you're describing, I would do that on, say, like a larger sheet cake or a sheet cake that is black icing. So I've done a couple of cakes that had black icing. So I will roll out a thin sheet of fondant, place the image on it, and then trace the image out again. Now, here's another trick you can use. Print the image twice. Cut the image out twice. What you do is you take the first image, place it backside up. So let's pretend that I'm going to do that right now. That was a great question. We're going to go off a little bit of a rabbit trail here, but that's okay. Got all the time in the world. So I'm going to peel this image up.
Jesse, the question was about putting fondant on a backing, but now he's going off on a tangent, and he's teaching us something else, basically.
That's why we keep it loose. That's why we keep it loose.
Goosey.
Okay, so this right here is from iDesigns on Icing Images. It's image number 792, and it's this beautiful just collage of these artistic style roses with the swirls and these green leaves along it. I love flowers. I love roses. So this was a perfect image for me. And all I did was I just took out the background to avoid wasting some ink and cut it out. So pretend that this is also a rose. Pretend. So what I would do is take the first image, the one that I want to see, flip it over, apply my piping gel to it. And for this example, I'm just going to put a quick blop down. Then I would take the other image, place it on top at the edge, and make sure it's lined up. And then slowly, so slowly, work it across from one end to the other. Instead of going from the center out like I did on the cake, I'm going from the edge to edge because I want to make sure that all the details are lined up perfectly. Now, what did I just do? I created a double thickness icing sheet. So the Icing Images sheets are very thick to begin with. I don't know what the exact thickness of them are, but they're thicker than other sheets that I've used in years gone by. But now you've just doubled it. So what does that mean? That now means you can take it and put it on something very dark.
Can't you do that anyway?
You sure can.
Okay.
But like here, let's just pretend this is something solid and black. And I place that image down on there. And you can see a difference between how this red looks versus how this red and this red looks. Because you have that extra backing and it's preventing the black from bleeding through or reflecting through. And so this effect is even stronger when it's the same image printed twice because you're getting a doubling effect. And it's isolating this dark, dark color from here. So yes, fondant would work 100%. I've done it. I love using that technique. I feel personally that this technique is better because you don't have to cut the fondant and you get a more brilliant image from the doubling up effect of having two sheets stacked on top of each other. Great question.
So while you don't have to do it because it works without it, you get that crisper, darker effect, almost fondant-like effect by just duplicating it and putting it back to back, or actually front to front, stacking them.
Yep, exactly.
I wonder if you can do the same thing. I'm not sure if you messed with it yet with the Smart Sheet and an Icing sheet, same image, because the Smart Sheet would stand up a little more. If you wanted to, that is. Sorry.
I've used Smart Sheets for lack of a better term, I'll call them architectural pieces that tend to stand up on their own support. So if I'm just doing a quick and dirty cake topper, I will do the double print, and then on the back, I'll take a thin stripe of piping gel, and then I use a piece of fettuccine pasta because it's flat. Press it onto that, and then just stick it on top of the cake. And there you go. You have a cake topper that's also edible, and you've not put anything in the cake like a dowel or a stick or a skewer or anything like that that could present a choking hazard.
Cool. Love those tips. Everyone's really loving this.
Good.
I'm trying to be quiet because your teaching is very well. You are very clear and understanding. You go over things, so usually I don't have to say anything.
Oof. Careful.
You're doing good. You're
Careful.
Well. I can, somehow I think you'll be okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk troubleshooting, because that's something everybody loves to talk about, is how do I get my image to apply correctly? So Number one, like I talked about, make the sucker cold. It's got to be cold. Like you can see here that just in the short amount of time that I've not been messing with it, the corners are trying to peel up. Part of that is the delay in me explaining what I was doing here in the middle and the edges drying out. But also it's from the cake and the image were different temperatures. And as they try to equalize ever so slightly, ever so imperceivably, the icing and the cake and the image are shifting. And whenever they shift, you tend to get this peeling effect. So that's, if this was a cake I was presenting to a client or anybody for that matter, as soon as I finished applying that image, put it in the box, put it in the chiller, and don't touch it for 20 minutes. Doesn't have to be forever, just 20 minutes. Some other issues you might run into is wrinkling. Wrinkling is an issue that comes from the buttercream being too moist or having too high of a liquid content. I have ran into that trouble in the past with whipped cream frosting, as I said before. I've also ran into that with Russian buttercream because Russian buttercream has a very high content of condensed milk. That's the word I was looking for. Another issue some people run into at times is where the image will try to crack or peel away from itself. That can be caused, it's the reverse of the wrinkling. It's from things expanding. It's from the cake being too warm. And as the cake tries to settle, if the cake is not fully settled and fully chilled before you start, that wrinkling can be caused by a compression. Or if the settling is happening down here, but you're fully attached up here, it can cause it to crack that way. I also have that trouble sometimes in the past when I've used ermine icing, because ermine icing starts with a boiled roux. So it's very, very dry icing. Delicious, not necessarily ideal for this. But if someone requested ermine buttercream, I would do the doubling up effect for that.
Makes sense.
Let's see.
So a couple questions with that. All right, so you're showing us on buttercream, and it needs to be a cold cake coming right out of the fridge. Is that the same with fondant?
So with fondant, yes. Perhaps even more so than you would with a buttercream, because under your fondant is going to be a layer of buttercream or a layer of ganache. And there's going to be buttercream or ganache in between each layer on your cake. And if those aren't chilled, then the cake can settle, shift, bulge, do a whole bunch of nasty things. And the same will happen with your fondant. So if you've ever had a fondant cake, you set it down and you get that nasty muffin top hip thing going around the side from where the cake is settled, you'll get that bulging with the fondant. So whenever I do a fondant coated cake, I chill it just the same. And it doesn't have to be chilled overnight. Whenever I assemble my cakes, I level them, I stack them, I put a crumb coat around the outside, and then I throw it in the chiller for 30 minutes. Sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit less, depending on how crunched I am for time and whether or not I dallied until the last minute, because that happens. But in that scenario, at least 20 minutes. At least 20 minutes so everything can get firmed up and settle. 30 minutes is even better. 40 minutes, sure, if you have the time or you're killing time on a Saturday. But the same with the fondant. I apply the fondant to the cake after it has had its finished layer or the final coat of buttercream on it. Because regardless of what I do, I always put 2 layers of buttercream on my cakes. One is the crumb coat, and the second one is the final coat. And then I'll put either modeling chocolate, rolled fondant, anything like that around it. And then again, back in the chiller, just to let the fondant settle up and get fully adhered to the cake. So great question.
Okay, then another question, of course, I knew we would have questions about the same idea with royal icing and cookies, if there's any extra tips as well.
So with royal icing, I personally don't do cookies very often, but a good friend of mine here in Jacksonville, she is a whiz at cookies. And what she does is she will take the cookie and ice it with her royal icing and then let the icing settle. She does not apply it wet because, in her experience, when she applies the image to wet royal icing, the weight of the image tends to sink into the cookie and it doesn't necessarily sink the same at one end as the other. So the image can sometimes get a warping effect to it. So she does a very similar technique to what I described, where mix some water with some piping gel, get this kind of thin, goopy consistency, flip the image over, paint, 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 slap it on, and then put it away.
All right, that's wonderful. You're doing good. Everyone's loving this.
Awesome.
Okay, Julie said, I missed this. What is the chiller, the fridge or the freezer? Oh, you put it in the fridge.
Great question. Yeah, this is me and my funny words. The chiller means the refrigerator.
Okay. And okay, we're getting more comments. I'm sorry. What about when you're taking that cake out of the fridge, whether it's on fondant or buttercream, you already have it boxed. So when it comes out of the fridge, is the image going to run or bleed?
That is a great question. So, will it? Probably not, but better safe than sorry in my world. So, what I do on every cake, and whenever I do a delivery, I have this explanation already scripted in my head, and I share this with my clients. But I have, oh, is that mirrored?
No, it's good. Perfect.
All right. So I have this label on top of every box where, like, if there's anything in the cake or on the cake that's inedible, it states it right here. Cover your butts. And then tips for professional presentation is keep it in the refrigerator if possible, but when you do take it out, leave it inside the box on the countertop at room temperature for 1 hour. Because what you want to happen is the temperature inside the box to come up to room temperature or at least somewhat close to it without shocking the cake. Because if you think about a tea glass or a water glass or any glass that has ice in it in the middle of summer, you get condensation on the glass. And that condensation isn't something magic happening. It's the humidity in the air reacting with the coldness of the glass, beating up into little beads of water, and then it runs down the sides. The same thing can happen with your cake. And the easy way to get around that is to let the cake sit in the box on the countertop at room temperature for 1 hour. And then whenever you go to take the cake out of the box, it's not room temperature. So it's still going to need to warm up a little bit unless they like cold cake. But it will be close enough to room temperature on the outside that it won't have that shock effect. And that will reduce the likelihood of dripping, running, anything like that.
Okay, so now you have a really nice box, by the way. It looks very secure, and it looks like it holds in a lot of the outside elements, the heat, humidity, etc.
Yes.
What they're asking is, do you wrap the box in plastic wrap, which we've heard about, or is the box enough to prevent the humidity from shocking the cake?
So I do that in one situation. If we go back to that Jurassic Park cake that I talked about earlier, that was in a box like this and then put into the freezer. But before I did that, I did wrap it in plastic just to be extra cautious. Then I took the entire box and the plastic and stuck it inside a gigantic cooler. And inside the cooler, I took a couple of water bottles that were filled up about halfway with water and then frozen. And boy, I wish I had some props for this, but I don't. So you've seen the deli containers, like what you get from like any delicatessen or the takeaway, doggy bag, whatnot. I would take one of those containers. Perfect. I have a prop now. Boom. Pretend that's a deli container. Forget that there's icing in the bottom of it. I would take a bottle, fill it about halfway with water, freeze it, wrap it up in a paper towel, stick it inside that cup, put it in the corner of the box, and then use a wire or string or something to tie it to the corner of the box so it wouldn't go flopping around or anything like that. I'm sorry, not the box. In the cooler, I'd use a string or something to hold it against the side. And that prevents any dripping from getting on the box. If any dripping does come out, it hits the plastic, which again protects the box. And if the box is protected, the cake is protected. So I wasn't quite prepared to tell that story, so I hope that that made sense.
Okay, so Nancy's asking why you refrigerate the cake in the first place, because I guess a lot of people don't.
So for people that are fortunate enough to not have to deal with 80-degree weather in February, you can probably get away with not refrigerating it. Me personally, when I work with a cake, again, it goes back to the fact that I have very hot hands when I'm working on a cake. I don't want to melt the cake or damage the cake because like this cake was fully refrigerated. And by fully refrigerated, I mean it's been in the refrigerator for at least a couple of days. And if I just put my hand up against it for a few seconds and peel it away, you can see the greasiness just coming right off on my hands. So I have very warm hands. And the way I found to get away from that and accidentally damaging the cake or the finish of the cake is by chilling it every time.
Okay.
So that particular system works for me.
Okay. Now I'm going to that label. I think that label's awesome. And that was on the top of the box, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want? This is kind of more. I know. I think I know the answers to your questions, but I want to bring this up because that label is awesome, and I think everybody agrees that it just keeps things a little more copacetic and running in the direction that we all want them to run.
Yep.
So, do you point that out when you deliver the cake? Say, "Hey, look at this label right here," just for your information.
Sort of. So I have I call it the ritual. So whenever I deliver a cake, I have but whoever suggested this, I really wish you had let me know ahead of time because I would have had it printed to be ready for it. Just kidding. But I have a copy of the invoice. I have a copy of what I call my service guide, which is a diagram of how to cut the cake to get the number of servings that you request out of it. And I have those packaged together with the delivery slip on top. And whenever I present the cake to the client, I say, hey, can I bring this in and just set it on the counter and show it to you real quick? Usually they say yes. If they say no, I work around it. But I set the cake down and I say, so this is an origami box. It's an origami box, so it will open up flat, so you don't have to reach inside and get your fingers all over the buttercream. So you pop the sides, and then I do this, and they sneak a peek. Get my face in front of the mic again. They sneak a peek inside the box and they go, ooh, and awe. And I say, then you just flip open like that. You can reach in and pull out your cake.
All right, and where do you get those boxes from? That's going to be the next question everybody asks.
Hashtag not an ad. brpboxshop.com. They offer free shipping to the lower 48 states with every order, and that doesn't matter if you order 10 boxes or 1,000 boxes. And their customer service is phenomenal. I like it when companies make mistakes because it gives you a chance to see their how they really act with their customers and their clients. And they sent me the wrong size box. And I called them and I said, oops, you sent me the wrong size box. And they go, well, which box did you order? I said, I ordered, I think it was the 10 by 10 by 12. And they said, oh, they pulled the wrong box. They sent you the 6-inch box, not the 12-inch box. And I was like, that's correct. And they said, okay, great. You'll have them tomorrow. They air overnighted a package of boxes because someone in the warehouse pulled the wrong order. Great customer service. And for me, that's a winner. And not to mention, the prices of their boxes are not bad either. So getting back to the ritual, then I package it back up and I say, okay, so here's a couple of tips. Leave it in the box on the countertop for 1 hour before you cut it. That will prevent the, just like I said, the sweet tea glass effect in the middle of summer. And, you know, yada, yada, yada. I say the rest of it. And I said, and oh, by the way, just in case you forgot all those things that I said, it's right here on the label. And I draw their attention. I don't make them read it themselves, but I leave it with, and if you forgot all that stuff I just said, just check out the label. And they go, oh, okay, great. So they've listened. Yes. and knock on Formica, I've not had a cake collapse yet. So
that's awesome.
I hope I just didn't screw that up for the wedding I'm preparing for in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. All right. Jesse Ann has a comment for us as well. Also, when you keep your cakes cold and then boxed, or and boxed, she probably means, you have a cake that is cold inside and then tempers out to the outside that is hitting the warm. Sorry, the cold that comes out. I'm not following her well enough. She types too fast sometimes. She's like me. The cold comes out from inside and it sets up the buttercream, or the buttercream had fondant, and gives you guys time on the delivery.
Exactly. And that's actually a good observation, Jesse Ann, because I don't do pickups at my house. I really don't like people traipsing through my yard. So I deliver every cake, and that's part of my service. Is I call it, you know, front door white jacket delivery, because I'm wearing a white jacket. Go figure. And having the cake fully chilled allows me to transport it anywhere in the area and not have to worry about it sagging, settling, melting, anything like that. And for anyone familiar with the Jacksonville Metro, it is not uncommon for me to get calls for cakes that are an hour to 90 minutes away, because that's just considered part of the Jacksonville area. We're a huge metro with lots and lots of highway driving in between. So yeah, that's another good reason that I refrigerate my cakes.
Okay. And Elizabeth is asking, what size box is that for cake? The one you have right there.
So this one here is a 10-10. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. This is an 8-8-10. So it is 8 across, 10 inches tall. And that's because whenever I do cakes, so in this particular case, this cake is a 6-inch, which means it goes on an 8-inch drum, which means it needs to go in an 8-inch box. Because if we sneak a peek back inside the box, you can see I have a couple of drums in here just to add some weight to it. You want, let me reach a light here. You want the box to be close to the edges of the drum. That way, the box itself holds the cake steady. So if I take this entire cake and throw it inside here, and again, this was for the demonstration, so I don't care that it was damaged. But because of that, if something bumps into the box, it's going to keep the box away from the cake and not damage it.
All right. I think Jessica said I deliver also, and she's also obviously in Florida, and I chill to Canada from here with frozen bottles in a cooler.
Yep. The frozen bottle trick works every time.
You probably use that too, actually, just to bring things in my car.
All right. Any other questions, or do we want to start talking about how to keep your printer tip-top?
Yes, let's go ahead and talk about that. I know it's 8 o'clock, guys. So let me ask you this, okay? We can keep going. I have no problem doing that. We also have the option, if you want to do a part 2 next week, we could do that as well, because I have a feeling you're just the number of questions that you've had so far, it's going to triple when we get into maintaining the printer. So kind of want to we haven't really talked about that. So I'm fine if we keep going. It's just, I don't know what Lori's saying in the background. She's saying something, but I can see a picture, but it's kind of up to you, Stacey. Whatever you want to do is fine with me.
I don't have anywhere to be until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay. Do you want to continue going tonight, or do you want to do a part 2 next week?
I'm fine with continuing if the rest of the gang wants to continue.
All right. Yeah, we'll definitely have a part 2, whether it's Christine, whether it's now or next week. We'll definitely have a part 2, and probably a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. He will be back with us if he really wants to be, and I hope he does. So it's kind of up to everybody here. Yeah, I think everyone wants to continue. Lori, are you okay? Because you're holding up the back end. Part 2, I have to leave. Yeah, we're not going to be able to win for everybody, guys. One thing I do want to mention too is that let's see. I'm just trying to think if we should do that little drawing now or at the end of the other part, because normally we stop at 8, and that way people who only plan to 8 will be eligible, because we're going outside the plan. So, all right, we prefer a separate part 2. Okay, that's fine. All right, so Lori, can you hear me? Give me your thumbs up. Do you want to keep going, Lori? Thumbs up. Banana up. Okay. I think that's a yes. All right, so this is what we're going to do. This is going to, Catherine, this is going to be more about regular printers, not about Big Blue. Big Blue, I noticed that you entered, we authorized you to be on that page. That page is going to help you. We have a separate Big Blue or Blue Printer page on Facebook. And so that's where you can get a ton of information, and always reach out, Catherine. I'll be glad to help you. All right, so we're going to continue, but first, I've really got to figure out a way to, who's beeping? Is that me? Oh, that's my crock pot. Okay, time to get the stew out. I'm like, where's this beeping from? All right, so I have a list of names that we have been collecting for people for the Cookie-a-thon. Cookie-a-thon is going to be on next week. You can watch for free, but there's also an all-access pass that gets you access to just about everything you can imagine. You get to re-watch everything. There's a lot of bonus videos. There's a lot of handouts and things like that you have access to as well. So it's a great deal. You cannot transfer this pass, and if you already have a pass, then you're not eligible. So I've been collecting names all the way through, and I have them all here, and I believe I've done a really good job. So we're going to do it this way. We have 5 passes, and Stacey, I want you to pick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 names on this list. All right, Stacey, pick a number between 1 and 20.
Between 1 and 20. Let's go with number 19.
Okay, well, that's easy. All right, so we got Kathleen Schaefer. You have 1. I need you to PM me your email address and your phone number. If you could please do that. Don't put it on here because everyone's going to call you. So just private message Icing Images on Facebook. All right, go ahead and pick another number. It cannot be 19 now.
Let's go with lucky number 3.
All right, Lisa Tui. You won. Same directions. All right, go ahead, pick another number.
Let's go with number 15.
Okay, now I gotta cancel. Oh, can't, wait, 20, wait, 2019, 18. All right, Sandra Martinez. I scribbled your last name. Same thing, name, email, private message me. Go ahead, pick another one number.
Let's see. How about number 11?
Cheryl. There was only one Cheryl. Do you know who you are? You asked for this, and you were the only one who asked. So go ahead and private message me your name, phone number, email. All right. We got one more. Last one.
One more. Oh boy. Number one. One more. Number one.
Kathy Lorenzo. You also have one. So if you can all private message me, that would be wonderful. I want you to pick one other one just in case one of these 5 doesn't follow through. So this is kind of that, maybe if somebody doesn't claim it, you get you're kind of like the alternate winner. So go ahead and pick one last one.
One last one. Let's see. How about, I don't know.
Tough
7.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sandra Frieza, you are our alternate. Okay, so go ahead and send us your information. We will reach out to you and let you know if you actually get the ticket. All right, so name, email, phone number. Got it? Just private message us. Don't put it here. All right, now I can put down my pad of paper and not post that anymore. Y'all ready for part 2? If for some reason you cannot stay with us, this is going to be aired again on Facebook. I think it's also going to be up on our YouTube page. That usually takes a day. And you can follow along and go back and watch that. And you can always, always feel free to message us with any questions you may have if you weren't available to watch and you come up with a question later. All right, part 2, here we go.
Part 2. All right, so funny story. I was not prepared to do as much in-depth discussion as I am doing right now. But that's cool. That's kosher. It's fun. So every time I tried to wheel away from this desk and go get my supplies, Debbie would ask me a question. So, but we got it. Nah, it's all right.
Because you start talking for a minute, and so I like squeeze it in there.
That's cool. So there's a whole assortment of products available to keep your printer in tip-top condition. You have print head cleaner. You have the cleaning kit for really doing a deep clean. You can get a steam gun to really steam out any clogs that you have in there. But, and it's a big but, I'm lazy. I'm lazy, which means I don't like doing this. So I only deep clean my printer when I need to. And by need to, I usually mean like once or twice a year. The current printer I have right now is, what did I say it was, Deb? Canon 8620. It was one of the platinum printers.
Yep.
Okay. I've had that printer for, I think right about 2 years now. And I've cleaned it once. And I've only had 2 head clogs in it in a year. I'm sorry, in 2 years. And here's the secret. I do not print every day. I sometimes only print once a week. Why? Because to keep the printer in good condition, you have to use the printer. Because one of the advantages of an inkjet printer is they have anticoagulants, other nasty stuff that causes cancer that's mixed into their dyes and their inks. And that's why you can let a regular printer sit for a month or two, not print, and it works just fine. In an edible printer, you can't put any of that stuff in because that stuff is bad, and bad stuff will get you into trouble. So everything that goes into the ink in an icing printer has to be food safe. And because it's food safe, that means it's going to clog if you don't take care of it. It can get gummy if you don't take care of it. For an experiment sometime, just to see if I'm telling the truth or not, go get some food dye, whether it's Amerigel, Wilton, the stuff that you get at Publix that comes in the little jars that look like fat gnomes, whatever. Put a drop of it on a glass or a metal plate and walk away from it for about 20 minutes, come back and poke it. It will have dried out. You get the same problem with your icing printer. So you have to use it at least once a week. So what I used to do with my old printer is I would do the print head check. It's in the settings menu under maintenance, and it would just print a couple of thin stripes of every color to verify that nothing was clogged. Great. I thought I was Gucci. I thought everything was fine. I still got clogs. I was like, well, there's got to be something better. So I went down a rabbit trail and I did a whole lot of research and came up with this. What am I looking at? What you're looking at is a printer head test for Icing Images brand inks. Now, the reason why I say for Icing Images brand inks is I did a lot of tinkering and I refilled my cartridges a lot of times testing against color swatches from the Pantone company. And if you're not familiar with who Pantone is, they're the people who say this color is this name or number. They are the authority worldwide on what the color red is supposed to look like. So I took what they said cyan, yellow, and magenta are supposed to look like. And this is an old copy, so that's why it's a little faded. So give me a little grace on that. And the swatches for blue, green, and red. And I went into the driver for the printer and I started tinkering with things. And I started getting things adjusted the way that I wanted them to look, like how I felt it should look. And after doing all that work, I came to the conclusion that the reason why my printer stopped clogging is because it was actually getting used. So what I did was I developed this. And what you have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. And each of those sections do something different. So up here, you have what's called a pre-purge. And what that does is it ensures that the heads are fully functioning, fully clear, and ready to do the test. So imagine taking a dry erase marker, and before you go up to the board, start using it, you just go down to the corner and go, and you just, real quick, just to make sure that it has juice in it. Same idea. Then you come down here and you have what's called the CMYK blend. CMYK are the 4 colors that are in your printer. In fact, if you look at the orange clips that you're not supposed to throw away that says on the box, I labeled each one of them by what color it is. And this corresponds to each of the tanks in the printer. So you have cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. Because blue is B, black is K. There's a technical reason for why it's K, but we'll just go with okay, it's K. So those are the 4 colors that are primary in your printer. And this is the primary color in the 2 other cartridges in the printer. If you get yellow and cyan, mix it, you get green. Yellow and magenta, make red. Magenta and cyan make blue. So this test right here makes sure that all of your colors are printing the way they're supposed to. The next test over here is called the screening bars test. What this does is it shows how effective your printer is at reproducing a fade. So you have 100%, 90, 80, and 10% increments, whole way down to what you cannot see here. But if you would take this document and open up in a graphics program, you would still see a square here that's fully white. Why did I do that? because if you get any color over here whatsoever, you know you have a problem where your printer is spitting out color where it's not supposed to. Pretty simple. You have bleed target testing. The bleed targets tell you if anything is bleeding, and bleeding is that shadowing effect or a capillary effect where the color is being drawn from one area to another. And you can check against your most common. Like for me and the stuff that I do, my most common offender is cyan and magenta. Cyan and magenta love to bleed in my designs. And if you look at the graphic that I used tonight, I was very careful anywhere that cyans were bordering something, they weren't bordering magentas unless absolutely necessary. And that's just my personal experience, my personal preference. Your mileage may vary. But this test checks to see if anything is bleeding. And then down here, you have a full purge bar. So this is the grown-up version of these. So it then lays down a thick stripe of each one of the colors. Now, why is it set up this way? If you print this out, and let me flip over to the side that doesn't have the instructions on it. But if you flip over to this side, all you have to do is start looking at it from top to bottom, and it will tell you the condition of your printer. Okay, I see solid colors. That means I don't have any clogs. Full color rendering, and I have my scale or my screening. I don't have any bleeding, and I don't have any gaps down here. If I have gaps down here, that means my sponges are getting empty. And if you want to not necessarily damage the printer, but make the printer very unhappy, run it with empty sponges in the cartridges. And that will make the head of the printer very upset, because the way the printer head works is it heats up this tiny little speck on the head and it forces out a droplet of ink. So if it's running dry, it's dry firing, and that can cause the head to burn up. So if you see spotting down here, that's why. So for me, I have an alarm on my phone that every Sunday at 6 p.m., it tells me to run a print test. So I run this test and I look at it. And regardless, once a month, once every other month, I physically open my printer, take out each cartridge, and make sure that the sponge is fully saturated. Because if it's getting low, I know I have to refill it. So let's talk about some of the other troubleshooting. If you take a look at this, and it's all crunchy and spotty and whatever down here, and you look up here and it's a little spotty, then that means you're either out of ink or you have clogs. If this looks kinda okay, but it's spotty and stripy, but then you get down here and it's fine, that means you have not, you've gone too long since you last ran a test on your printer, and it's not getting used up enough, and it's at risk of seizing up from it drying. So that's the reason why it's set up this way. And if you can't remember all that, a lot of it are in the instructions here. And I think I just for a second saw someone pop up in the chat and say, where can we get a copy of this? Everybody on the live tonight is getting a copy of this. So Lori or Deb, if you want to post that link, there's a link to my website. It's a separate page just for the participants on this live. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. But if you go on that page, there's going to be, let's see here. If you go on that page, there will be a copy of this test sheet. There will be a copy of the artwork that went with this project. And there's something else on there I call the spritz experiment. We haven't even talked about that. Probably not going to talk about it. So just read the description and go have fun with it. Do whatever you want. Have fun. Make a day of it.
All right, we have a question real quick. Do you print more than once per week, or do you try to wait?
So there's
You're printing at least a week, aren't you?
I print
Okay,
at least once a week. And that's the reason why I have that alarm on my phone for 6 p.m. on Sundays. And it reminds me to run the test print. So if I have not had any orders that week, or if I've not had any orders that require edible printing, at least it goes, oh yeah, don't forget to run that. So I do it anyway. Now, if I've had a week where I've had at least a couple of orders that have color rich printing, what the heck does that mean? To me, a color rich print is any print that has at least 40 to 50% coverage. Meaning, if I look at this image, I had this rose over here, the parrot over here, and then the cake wrap over there. That was at least 40% of the page was covered in something colorful. Yellows and reds and greens and blues and magentas and all of them. I would consider that good enough to not have to run the test print. And that's just to be a little bit economical. Now, sometimes if I forget, or again, sometimes I'm lazy, and I just don't do this on Sunday because I'm like, I'll do it in the morning, and I forget about it, then I will run the test print anyway as a form of priming the printer to make sure it's in tip-top shape. So I think...
So you're saying you would run it before you print just to make sure if you didn't run it that week?
Just in case. Because the way I look at it is, oh, and by the way, there's two versions of this in the download. There's the version with instructions and the version without instructions. Use the version with instructions just for reference. Use this version for anytime you actually run the test, so you're not wasting the additional black ink from printing the instructions. And here's the logic I follow. If you look at, please be in here, please be in here. Here it is. You should recognize this, Deb. Here's a test print that Deb and I were working on when we were talking about some of the different settings that are going on here. And you can see that I have a lot of bleeding here. So this was not a final, this is an in progress, but it was in my finished bags, and I'm glad it was. The logic I follow is, if I print this and it comes out perfectly fine, I've wasted that much ink. I've wasted that much ink. If I print this, I've wasted that much ink, because the coverage on this page is probably in the neighborhood of about 25%. The coverage on this page is a little bit closer to 70%, with a lot more heavily saturated colors in here. So if I'm going to waste a print, I would rather waste it on a test print than waste it on something like this. Here's the other rub. This is plain paper, just regular plain, I think 20-pound copy paper that you get from your big box office supply store. This is an icing sheet. The icing sheet is more expensive. It's good for Deb if you waste your icing sheets because you have to buy more, but
don't waste icing sheets.
But this is just a plain piece of paper. So what I do on my printer,
Okay, there we go. We've linked it on the bottom, so it's going to stay there for just a little while, guys. So that will help you.
Perfect.
Moving this printer.
Here it is. So
that is a few years old.
About two, I think.
I'm going to look. I have the power.
You have the power to look up my account. That's creepy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I am the owner. I hope I do.
That's true, you are. So for anyone who's used one of these printers in the past, you know that you feed your icing sheet through the back and you do it one sheet at a time, right? Cool. Oh, did you know that there's a printer down here? I'm sorry, not a printer, but a tray. This tray is where I put plain copy paper, just regular paper. So whenever it's time to do my test print, I have a preset in the printer settings that says test print or something to that effect. I don't remember what it is. And it instructs the printer to use the bottom tray instead of the rear tray, which is how I have my printer set up as default. So it one little thing that saves you a little bit of time, but I certainly feel like I'm calling myself out right now, because if I'm too lazy and I don't even have to put a sheet in it, ugh.
Wait, go back a second, because Carol said something I didn't like, so I started to text or type it in and I lost track. Are you printing from the front or the bottom tray or the rear tray?
When I do an icing print for the platinum printers, it's the rear tray, always.
Yes, okay, good. Okay.
When I do the test print, I use the bottom tray because my bottom tray just has plain copy paper in it.
Perfect. Perfect.
Cool. So let's see here. I think that about wraps it up for the troubleshooting segment. Is there anything I missed? Any other questions?
Okay. Yes. First of all, let me answer this. This link is available in an indefinite time period. He does have a little tiny survey in there. I think it has one question. Please answer that. I know, Carol, I totally called you out. Please answer that question. It's going to help us, mainly Stacey, know basically what the best classes to teach are. It's kind of information we need to give you more, give you more. Got it? So yes, Stacey is going to be on more for sure. I don't think we're done now. So because I'm going to ask another question, I'm just making sure I didn't miss any questions because I got distracted because Carol said, I know Carol, you were joking, but and I don't have a son in college. He's taking classes. He's not considered in college. Okay. All right.
But he is considered a skydiver.
Yes, he is a skydiver. He is. He'll do just about anything. Got a couple kids that are like that. All right. So you are in Florida and it is humid. Now, some people sometimes are in dry areas and their printers are going to act differently. But
yes,
I will tell you that what Stacey's put together is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I am so impressed and grateful to have somebody of Stacey's caliber being able to teach for us and help you all as well. So make sure you follow him as well on Facebook, Instagram, wherever he has his information, because you can expect a lot more from him. Now, please ask any questions if you have them as far as what he's asked. This is a great time to ask these questions while we have him here. And we didn't go too far past, which is great. So Stacey, you seldom clean your printer because you literally print basically at least once a week, which is wonderful. You know, we still don't recommend you getting a printer unless you're going to use it once a week. But if you are as methodical as Stacey is and make sure you can make sure you set your alarm and you're not too lazy all the time, then I think you'll find success. So we just don't like people purchasing the printers unless they're using them regularly. And too many people will do that. So I like to stress that. Because we want you to be happy. Now, Liz does have a question. How can we take care of the icing sheet already printed? So, Stacey, I'm going to let you answer that.
I don't quite understand what that means, take care of it already printed.
So she prints it ahead of time, which a lot of times people do like.
Yes.
And she's not putting it on the cake for a little while.
Yes. So I do the same thing. If I have a bunch of orders for the weekend, I will do all my printing and all my cutting in one pass. That way, if I'm going to do it, let me go ahead and just get it all done so I don't have to waste time later setting it all back up, taking the dust covers off, making sure that whatever. So this right here is one of the cellophane bags. I'm sorry, not cellophane. One of the metallicized bags that my icing sheets come in when I purchase them from Icing Images. And whenever I was done with it, I was like, huh, I bet you I can use this to keep a hold of my prints when I'm done. And that's exactly what I do. So I wrote finished on it. And if I pull this out, you see I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. I've got the acetate carrier sheets. This is something we just didn't have a chance to talk about tonight. Here's some test prints that I did before. Here's a cake topper. Here's some of those other test prints that we talked about before. And then a whole mess of acetate carrier sheets. And what I do is I take one of those carrier sheets and I make it the top. So it goes on top. So if I go to print something, and like in the case of this, I was like, oops, that parrot is actually for a project I'm doing in a few days, but I use this already. I just take it and I slide it underneath that and just provides a little bit of protection. And then I just throw the whole thing back in this bag. Zip it up. And now it's in a perfectly sealed environment that's going to keep humidity out in my case, or in the case of folks that are in drier climates, it keeps the humidity in. So it's not a perfect scenario and it won't last for years and years and years. But like some of those prints that are in there, they're upwards of 2-3 months old, I think, at this point. So let's take a look at, here we go. Yeah, this one. So this print here is probably 2 or 3 months old right now. Still perfectly fine. It's flexible, it's pliable. This one was not cut. It just has the registration marks for cutting, but I didn't cut it. But yeah.
Gotcha. Now you have bleeding on that, but you talked about that already.
Yes. Yeah. The bleeding is my fault. Well, not necessarily my fault, but I caused it because I was messing around with the settings.
Yeah.
That was not a problem with the printer.
So couple things now. Christine wants to know, does wafer paper print well or does it bleed? So wafer paper, yes, you can print it. I'm going to let Stacey chime in as well. But wafer paper is generally not used for laying flat on cakes. It's because it's so transparent or translucent. So it's something more used to create things like roses that stand up off of a cake. But yeah. Stacey, what do you have to say about that?
That's my same take as well. I use wafer paper to create faux silk flowers sometimes. And if I do print on it, I try to print something that looks like the vein texture of the flower or the petal or whatever other piece I'm making. And then I use something to attach it all together. So I don't actually use wafer paper or rice paper on the top or on the side of a cake.
Okay. The two types of paper that we recommend the most for laying flat would be the premium icing sheets. A lot of people like the smart sheets, and you can actually use the Flex Frost. Flex Frost is the most expensive of the three types, though, so we kind of recommend that you don't if you're watching the pennies. Mara wants to know, what brand of edible paper do you prefer to use? So
I will tell you honestly that I do use Icing Images paper, ink, and printer 100%. Now, the whole truth on that story is my first printer was from Icing Images, but I used cheaper paper that I found online. Was the quality okay? Yeah, it was passable, but I had issues where the icing sheets would tear or crack. They weren't kept in the same type of sealed bag like this. It was more like just a plain oversized sandwich baggie is what they came in. And they got the job done, but they didn't look rich and vibrant like this. So I have always used Icing Images printers. I've always used Icing Images ink for my printers. But for about the first year or so, I did use a third-party supplier, and I just was not happy with the results. And I thought it was just, oh, this is just a crummy product. No, I was using the wrong product and getting the wrong results. So hashtag not an ad. Deb can verify she has not paid me to say any of this.
Nope. The people who come on live do not get paid, guys. Nobody does. I'm too cheap. Actually, frugal. I like to put money into the products to keep the prices low. Smart sheets, by the way, are the same price. So it's just a preference. Smart sheets don't have sugar in them. Icing sheets do. Smart sheets are more like cardstock, not quite as thick. Icing sheets are more like icing sheets. They're softer and more pliable. So it's just a preference, guys. Lori, I put a question up. Tell me what kind of printer you have before we're going to answer your question. And Nanette wants to know, what's the best thing to do to your printer if you're unable to print for an extended period of time? Like say you go on vacation.
This is perfect. So this question is actually, yeah, I know why you're laughing, Deb. So this question is actually what started the process to get to here tonight, because I was at the See Me retreat 2 years ago, the first one, and I was talking to Deb and I was like, hey, I have this problem, blah, blah, blah. And it seems like it's anytime I'm away from the house for a couple of weeks. And Deb said, well, how do you take care of your printer? And I said, it sits there. And she said, no. Cover it. So I went online and I found a cover that fits my printer. Hang on just a sec. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right, Roy, I'm going to answer your question in just a minute. He's coming back. I want to see what he's got, and we want to see where he sourced that because we're going to see if we can find you a link. I have not seen this guy, so.
So this,
Ooh.
When I first started, I just took a trash bag, flopped it on top of the printer, and said it was good. Well, it was, except it looked terrible.
Oh, sorry, my dog just woke up. Okay.
So what I have here is a printer cover. Boom. Straight from the 80s. In its technology finest. It's just a sewn, kind of like a Cadora sort of material that's a little plasticky and shiny on the inside. And it just sits on top of the printer. It keeps dust out of the printer. But importantly, in my case, it keeps the humidity inside the printer regulated as well. Because even if you don't sit it underneath like the register or the vent for your AC or your heating system, the air is still constantly moving around inside your house. And that air moving around can help dry out the components inside the printer and lead to clogs. So in your particular case, like, I recommend one of these covers for anybody with a printer. And I loved it so much that I actually went and got one for my Silhouette Cameo as well to do the exact same thing to keep dust off of it. But what I recommend in this situation is keep the cover on at all times. In your particular case, where you're going away on a holiday for a couple of weeks, I would take a big garbage bag, open it up, put the printer in the garbage bag, close it up, take another big garbage bag, put it over the top, and then tuck it underneath the bottom. That way it's fully encapsulated. And another trick is before you wrap it up, run a test print. Whenever you come back and you unwrap it, run a test print. But save the first one so you can compare it side by side and go, it looked okay, but now it's not so okay. Maybe I need to run another test print, or maybe I need to do a head cleaning on the printer to get it back up and running. again, like I said before, if I waste the little bit of ink on a test print, I'm wasting a lot of ink on an image. The same logic applies to doing a test print versus cleaning the print heads. Because when you clean your print heads, you're forcing a lot of ink through that, and that will have knock-on effects later because the waste sponge that's inside the printer will eventually fill up from you doing those prints, and then you have to get inside the printer to clean up that mess. And believe me, even wearing gloves, you will still come out of it looking like a rainbow because it is a disaster to clean. It can be done, but it's not fun.
Okay, all right. And yeah, we're going to be carrying some of those printer covers very soon. So they are still on Amazon, but we will have them very soon. Jake says hi, Carol. Okay, now I need to answer a question that was asked earlier. Do you print pre-cut circles by chance or no? You don't. I know you don't. So here's the answer. Okay. Oh wait, before we go on, Denise asked a good question. Do you need to remove the ink cartridges when you're not using it for a little while?
So my recommendation on that one would be to, like I said before, once a month or every other month, I take the cartridge out of my printer and I physically check the levels on it. I would show you that now, but I don't have the power cable in my studio space, so I can't do that. But take a look at it. If the sponge is fully saturated, meaning the ink level is at or above the level of the sponge, good. I would just let it be the way it is. But if the ink is below the level of the sponge, I would at the very least refill that cartridge. That way the top half of the sponge doesn't dry out. Because if the sponge begins drying out, it's not quite a lost cause, but you're going to go downhill fast where the cartridge just will not hold the ink the way it normally should. And also, if you look on the side of the cartridge, there's 3 little dots underneath it. Each one of those dots, fill it in when you refill your cartridge because the cartridge has a lifespan of 3 refills. After 3 refills, the quality of the sponge begins to degrade. And it's not really, unfortunately, it's not a lifetime product in that sense. But if you need something that is a lifetime product like that, I would look at the tankless printers that Icing Images carries.
All right, so I want to elaborate just a little bit now. When you're looking at the cartridge and what he's talking about, the ink and the sponge, when you're looking at that sponge, you can see on the bottom part, it's a little darker than the top part of that sponge. And so the cartridge itself, yeah, I'm not sure what you're about to do, but this is really great. But you can kind of tell on the cartridge itself by looking at the sponge and looking at the darker area of the sponge. On the other side, where the sponge is not, there is a tank where the ink is kind of just loose in there. So he is going to show us what he's going to do. So, all right. So that's, you see the side where you can see the bubble of ink on there. That's the liquid size where you refill. And the other side is underneath that label. But you can see it, he's going to show you to the right of that label, that you can see that sponge and you can see where the levels are. Okay? So I just wanted to clarify that. That's a really great information. I do not recommend taking those cartridges out ever because then your print head dries out.
That is correct.
Just follow what we're talking about, and it's awesome. All right, yeah. So more. All right, do you by chance have an electronic cutter such as a Silhouette or a Cricut? I ask you this because. And I'm being dead honest, I'm doing a video right now for a Cookie-a-thon where I talk about this very thing. For me, and I'm being totally honest, I hate pre-cut circles. I've hated them forever. Why? Because you're like Avery labels, you're printing targets, 12 targets on a page or 15 targets on a page. And it's very hard to do. And we have a program and it works. And we've got tons of customers who love them, absolutely love them. So we can't get rid of them. Okay. So Rita, we'll answer your question in a minute. So we have to sell them. Now, what we recommend, and a lot of people already have, what Stacey's showing, he's got a silhouette cameo that he purchased from Icing Images. It came with a food safe bundle. We have a Cricut as well. I personally love the Cricut. I know how to use the silhouette, and I like the silhouette because it's more advanced. But the Cricut is definitely becoming a strong contender with the silhouette, but it's not there. The silhouette's definitely more advanced, and it probably always will be. So anyway, it's kind of a preference, what you like better. I'm sure that Stacey likes the silhouette better because he is a technical geek, and it gives him much more control. But let me tell you, when you don't use pre-cut circles and you use one of these machines, you are saving so much money. And I'll tell you why. If you need 2-inch circles, 3-inch circles, 2.5-inch circles, business card, whatever you need, you have to buy each and every size. And you have these boxes sitting on the shelf until you're using them. And that's money being wasted because until you use it, it's not earning any money. All right. We're checking into the problem with not finding the test page. I can't look at that right now because I'm talking, but they're looking.
For the test page, you have to use the link that was shared earlier. It's not on the main page of my website. So you can't just go to my website and find it. You have to go to that exact link.
Yes, the link that we put up, and Lori will go ahead and put it up right now for you. Lori, there she is. Can you put the link up again? Because they're going to his page to look for it. So with either the silhouette or the Cricut, you get, when you purchase them from us, and I'm sorry, my dog woke up and now he's playing. When you, sorry, now I just totally discombobulated us. We have a food safe mat that goes with either of the two electronic cutters, and that has all the settings on there, acts like a cheat sheet. That's what he was showing earlier, and it tells you what each setting would be for each machine, including the Cricut Maker. So you have, if you put icing sheets on the shelf and they're sitting there, they're wasting money because you're not using them. If you are able to use the Cricut or the silhouette with the 8.5 by 11 sheet or the A4 sheets that we have, then hey, Lori, can you check that link, make sure it's okay? You can buy those size sheets in 4 packs and in 10 packs, reducing your cost per pack dramatically. So you're not paying extra shipping every single time, and you're getting a lower cost per package. Then what's the advantage of the print and cut is you can print and cut exactly what your customer wants. The size. Okay, Lori says she's tried it, that it works, so make sure you copy that whole thing. There's no www before it. So just copy and paste, guys. And I can tell it works because when the link went up, you can see that I'll look as well. At any rate, you're giving your customer exactly what they want, the shape, the size, everything. So you have that flexibility. So it's a great investment, especially if you do a lot of them. And if you do tons and tons of print and cut, then you need to start looking at the big blue or the little blue or the big blue XLs. And I know Allison's on here and Natalie's on here, and that's kind of one reason they switched over to that, because they were doing so many print cuts and it made more sense. So I think Stacey is bringing up his website. So he's going to walk us through that, and we're going to end up real soon. So All right, you want to bring up that screen, Lori? All right, so this is the link that he copied and pasted right up there. And you want to go ahead and I'm going to let you take over now. I'm stopping talking. It's all you, Lori.
Nope. So you just go to the address stacys-images-live-2023-03-21. Longest address ever, I know. But Lori or Deb, if you could please post that in the chat again.
Yeah, it's listed. We just listed it, and maybe if Lori wants to put it up on the screen, but she just listed it again. So,
okay, perfect.
Right, keep going.
Perfect. So when you come to this website, there's a little welcome splash up here. And then down here, if you create anything using this, please share it with me. I would love to see what you come up with. Get creative. If you take the wraparound image, the Think Warm Thoughts image that I made for tonight, chop it up, hack it up, do something different with it, make it into paper mache. I don't know, do something crazy with it, have fun. If you'd like to see more from me, give me a suggestion here, drop in a vote. If you hit vote now, I promise there's a funny message there. It's not offensive, but it's just funny. And then there's a link here for the weekly test print, a link here for the Think Warm Thoughts. And for those of you that are Silhouette Studio users, it comes with the design file as well. And then there's an extra thing down here just to get your creative juices flowing. So that's it.
Okay, if it's